Welcome back to the podcast. Today we're talking to Mary Ann Pruitt. Mary Ann is the CEO and president of Mosaic Media. She started her career in media and working as a senior sales executive for some of the nation's largest media outlets. But after discovering her talents and falling in love with all things media strategy, Mary Ann founded Mosaic as a way to provide a niche expert experience to agencies and marketing departments across the country. Her hard work and savvy strategy skills have led Mosaic to year-over-year growth and has expanded her impact as an industry leader in all things traditional, digital, and everything in between when it comes to media. Today, we're talking about how to leverage your audience of one to feed your media strategy. Hope you enjoy it. Mary Ann, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited about today's conversation.
I think the cool thing about talking to another agency owner, I ran agencies in the past. I do all the work, the marketing, the stuff like that, is really focusing on the nuanced conversations that we wish we could have, but people don't ask us about. And I think the number one thing that I'm seeing when I'm working with clients, and that you're definitely seeing when you're working with clients, is being very specific to talk to one person in your marketing. And that can be scary. I know personally it's been scary, but I kind of want to know your experience. What has been your personal experience with your company
Mhm.
talking to that one person, and how do you work with clients to get them to understand who that one person should be?
I love this question so much because when I grew up in the media world, I grew up in advertising, like my whole career has been around it. And when we started so broad, and when I started my career, everything was so broad in demographics. My
Hmm.
target audience is an audience of 18 to 54-year-old men. Well, that 18 to 54-year-old first, 1854, and you're reaching, and we all knew that there was differences then. But why did we do it? Because we really had four choices of what we were placing in media, right? You had your TV, radio, print, and some outdoor. That's what you had. That
Mm.
was it. You couldn't actually go down and target and get to know your audience that much further. We had to go broad because it was like, oh, everybody's my customer. So why is it so important is we have to start having the conversation of the audience of one, because where is one, there are millions and thousands right there that are the exact same. But if we talk about the audience of one and we build our strategies around the audience of one, our budgets will go further, we'll get more out of it. It is very scary to think that niching down is actually going to make a difference, but it truly does. And we have to, as marketers, start thinking outside of so broad of an audience and really start thinking about the audience of one.
Talk to me about how you know you've nailed it. Because I mean, for me, it's years, right? It took years to really fine tune to get to the one. And like, oh, once you hit that nerve in the marketplace, it's like, oh, selling is easier. People come to knock on your door. You're more interesting, etc. But I'd like to know how you've personally done it behind the
Yeah.
scenes. But then, how do you know you're getting traction? What are some of the key things that you look for in terms of measurement, or how do you know you're on the right path?
You really start to know you're on the right path when you start to see things become a little simpler and things coming into you. Your inbound is
Hmm.
easier. Things are happening in the way you want them to happen. Conversations are easier. You're in a conversation with somebody and they have already made most of the decision at this point that they want to work with you. You're the right fit because. So those are the things that you start measuring on because they're already at the table because of the fact that they know who you are. When
Hmm.
somebody says you're just like I thought you would be, or whatever it is in that, or this brand is exactly how I thought it would be when I met you, or what it was going to be like, that means you've made it. That means you've gotten to that point. So as a brand, when you're looking at it, because when you're an agency and you're doing thought leadership and you're doing various things around, that's one piece. But as a brand, when I'm going after my customers, you start to see those customers coming to you. That's
Hmm.
showing that your paid media is working. You're not chasing customers as much as they are coming to you. That means you're targeting them where they are. So, I talked about going away from the broad demographic now to the very niched individual audience of one that you
Hmm.
want to identify and go after. And who is that audience of one is key to who your brand is. You have to look at the data sets. You have to identify who that is. It is a journey. It
Hmm.
takes time, except for the information is really in front of you right now. Sometimes we're just scared to take that leap to act on that information.
I like that. What are some of the data points that are like in our face that we tend to
Oh,
not want to look at.
our current sales are a key thing. So if we're seeing that we've always been broad and generalization, our paid outreach, and now all of a sudden, I will say this, I've heard this so much recently. My Google AdWords don't work like they used to.
Hmm.
Okay, that's because you're not reaching your target audience at a top funnel approach because our
Mhm.
funnels are flattening. They are not to the point where you have a full funnel when you're going through this full customer journey. Things are starting to flatten where your keywords are having to work with your other paid. So
Yeah.
they need to know who your name, what your name is, what your brand is when you're identifying and seeing who your customer is. So big thing right now is if your sales have started to flatten, have started to dip, your keywords aren't working, things like that. That's a bottom funnel approach. That's
Mhm.
not, hey, I need to reach who my ideal target audience is with a top of funnel approach. So, what you've got to look at as a whole who is who are my best customers? Who are the repeat customers? Who are the ones that are coming back and forth who want to purchase more things from me? Who is that ideal customer for me? Do they spend a certain amount? What's their income like? Are they male? Are they female? Are they parents? Are they millennial? Are they Gen X? What are they consuming? Because that all the more information we have about them, the more we can identify then where they are in consuming media. And
Mhm.
then we can build out our strategies for it.
That's brilliant. And I think even just the psychographics, like what to say in that media and how they perceive certain trigger words or causes or
Yes.
ideas and stuff like that. Define to me in today's terms, we're recording late 2023. What is media?
What is media? Oh gosh. Like I said, when I started in this, it was TV, radio, print, outdoor. That's what you got. Like you had no choices. That was it. Now in today's world, anytime you're consuming a brand, it is a form of media. In real time of today, we're going through the baseball finals and the headed into the World Series. I'm a big baseball fan. So I'm watching,
Arizona's crazy, man.
it was crazy, right? Arizona Phillies, right? But if you're watching, actually, on the pitcher's mound, a logo is constantly being CG'd over the dirt where the pitcher
Mhm.
is standing on the mound. That's media now. This is what that's product placement. That's what we're talking about. So you're talking product placement, you're talking programmatic, you're talking your traditional platforms, TV, radio, print, outdoor. What is programmatic? Programmatic now is where we are going and identifying that audience of one. We are flipping media on its head. We're going to where the audience is. We are finding the behaviors where they are in their life now and spending money and serving ads to them where they are. That's online, that's through
Mm.
video, that's through streaming, that's through audio, that's through every format possible. All of us are over consuming media. We don't think of it as media, but that's what we are over consuming regularly. Our numbers after the pandemic, during the pandemic, shot through the roof. We were already at our all-time highest consumption as a society, as a global society.
Mhm.
The pandemic shot it through the roof and it hasn't come down. We have not stopped over consuming.
Yeah,
We
no.
over consume media.
It became the new baseline, which even seeing in different industries and different trends, not just media, the new baseline is like at least half of 150% more of what the previous was.
We are seeing that overconsumption taking place and it's not backing back down. It's not, and it's not going to. It's not going
Especially
to.
with the VR glasses. I'm sure you're seeing those
No, yeah.
interviews with
That's another form of
we
media.
could have done this podcast in VR with the meta space, but we
We
just
could have.
didn't.
Yeah, you're spot on. We
Yeah.
absolutely could have. And those are the things, that's ad placement. Like we're doing ad placement in all of these formats, all of these places. Anytime that you are seeing anything. And here's the one thing. It's not that it's necessarily new. It's just new ways that we're consuming it.
Yeah.
So in streaming audio and video, I mentioned the CG on the pitcher's mount. That's not new. We've been doing CG product placement for decades.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how we can do it now digitally. But what are you doing? Streaming audio, streaming video. That's not new. We've always had audio. We've always had the podcasts. That we've always had talk radio. We've always had these things. We're just consuming them now on more channels. And now we actually have the way to precisely target our audience.
Yeah.
That's the biggest piece that's just blown this whole thing up.
How do you combat the shininess of new and trying to be everywhere versus trying to be where you should be? Because I think that one, a premise to this question was I don't get a lot of really good direct mail.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone sends me a good direct mail piece, or if I send a
Pay
direct mail
attention.
piece, like it's, oh, that's cool. Why?
Yeah.
Because I'll say it out loud, like I'm a millennial, right? We
Right.
didn't grow up with direct mail, but when you see a nice piece, oh, this
Yep.
is different.
That's the customer experience with the ads, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you do it. And it's funny because we're probably different parts of millennial. I'm a first year millennial. That
Yeah.
means that I remember before computers. I remember the library being truly going and pulling a card and pulling a book out. Like those, nothing was digitized yet. I remember all those things happening where you didn't grow up with that. So there's all these different variations. That's the other part when we get into the generational conversation is each generation, millennial, Gen Zs, they're really broken up into little sectors because
Yep.
of where technology exploded during it and how we consume our media. But
Hmm.
what you're talking about is the customer experience in the media. You're spot on. When we find this goes all the way back to the audience of one, when we find who our audience of one is, then every piece of advertising that we're doing, it doesn't matter, traditional, digital, all the above, is speaking to them
Hmm.
and it is speaking to them in the way that they're going to grasp that and experience that. Because
Hmm.
when one good piece of mail stands out to you, it's somehow connecting with you. It's giving you a good experience. It's something you actually are interested in. It's not junk mail. It's not
Hmm.
something that's just, okay, this is where we're going to throw
Shred it
that.
and forget it. Yeah.
Yes. Like how many of us get a pile and we go through it? Now, mail had a huge comeback with the pandemic because of the
Hmm.
fact that it was nobody was getting mail. So all of a sudden we started
Yeah.
using mail again. But it's the customer experience in it. The ads that we're serving to our customers, how we're serving it to them, where they are. We know more about our customers. Get to know your customers more. Start diving into that. What data points can we find out about them? And then we serve things that they want to see and they want to hear. What is it that in that message point and what is it in the platform? So it's the, I always say it's the science and the creative that have to work together.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
both science. They're both science. We have to reach them where they are, but we have to reach them with what they want to hear.
And how they want to consume it. How do you like
Yes.
work with clients? Because I mean, in your argument of media being everywhere and media is everything, which is true, it pushes us to say, well, I want to do everything. Then we got to take the podcast,
Yes.
slice it up, put it on TikTok, put it on Twitter, put it on X, or sorry, Twitter X, and put it
Yes.
in all these different
Right.
places. And it's a lot of energy and time consumption. How do you combat that versus no, here are the 5 channels that we're going to focus on?
So it is flipping media on its head where we start with the audience. We're going to go, okay, who is this individual that we're targeting and making that audience of one to where they are,
Mm,
not everybody being there. It's where they are. Where's the most precise way to serve an ad to them? And then how do we add on to that? And no matter what size budget you're doing, you have some way of being able to do this, right? And you, if you're doing any social, if you're doing any keywords, you want to start looking at your whole plan as a whole. Things have evolved. If you haven't assessed anything in your paid in the last year or 2 or 3, forget it if it's 3 plus, like you need to assess it. You need to
mhm.
assess what you're doing. Things have evolved. They evolve drastically regularly. So you need to look at what your paid space is doing. But you really, truly, it's flipping it where before we used to think, okay, what tactics do I want first? Okay, now my creative is going to do it. Okay. And
Mhm.
then this is going to reach my audience. And you thought broadly on a demographic, but pretty much you could reach that demographic anywhere. And
Mhm.
that was more identifying what TV station you went to, what radio stations you went to, what print you went to, and you were good. Now it's nope, here's my audience. Let me work backwards into where that audience is. How am I going to find them? Now I'm going to use a tactic that's going to work best for them,
Mm,
but I'm going to find the channels that they're on. If I programmatically bid it, it's based on the data sets of those individuals. So
that's
I'm
interesting.
looking at if I'm going to take a tactic of video, great. Where are they streaming? Where are they looking? Where are they doing? And I'm going to take tools and programmatically start to bid it on the impression of the individual, not thinking about just the tactic
Oh, that's
anymore.
pretty cool. I like that a lot. I'm gonna say a sentence, and I'll have you actually a 2-word sentence, which is more of a trigger word. I'm gonna get your response to it and
Okay.
see how you.
See how I hate, see how I'm triggered.
I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
Vanity metrics.
Oh Lord. Okay. Sam, maybe I am a little triggered on this for sure. I'm actually just going to talk about metrics as a whole and why they are important, but why we can over analyze metrics as well. See, here's the thing. So I'm a data person. I've always talked data. My love for media actually came out from my background of I actually started as a designer and then went into economics and marketing as a double major. And I fell in love with statistical data. So
Nice.
that's where I'm going to go with this. And where metrics as a whole, actually, we need to have these conversations, because data will always tell us a story. We just have to be looking for the story and not get lost in the story. We have to look for it. We have to identify it. We have to see where we need to go. But we can't have everything driving us to a point where every 30 seconds something changes and we have to optimize. We do need to optimize regularly. We do need to look at things regularly in today's world, because things are changing on the drastic. But for overall metrics, we have to have our baselines of where we are. If we're not hitting those on a daily basis, then we start readjusting. Then we start looking at things. And I'm just going to, say the good catchphrase. I'll throw one back to you. KPIs. What are our key performance indicators, right?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I want to barf when I hear it and want to say it, but at the same time, like, we vanity metrics.
If you're looking at, I
yes.
love it, but when your agency's feeding you, here's how many people clicked on your stuff. Okay, what does that mean
Yeah,
to
but then
the
what is our
business
conversion
value?
tracking?
Yeah.
What am I looking at with the conversions? What am I looking at with the clicks? What am I like? I can talk about clicks all day, but when your agency or your firm is actually asking you for the back end access to tag something, to track a conversion, you want that. That is what you want. And at the end of the day, that is where you're going to get the most quality out of anything, right? And clicks and impressions, and we can talk about those all day long, but we have the ability now to actually track a conversion. Let's track a conversion, and let's also use each tactic to the correct goal. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the funnel, what we talked about. If I'm looking at some programmatic tactics in video and audio and even some display ads, those are top of funnel tactics that are overall brand. Make sure that those have words that then are visually going to make that consumer go, oh, now I'm going to Google it, because this is the consumer's mind. This is how the consumer does it. The consumer is your full omnichannel approach is going to be that they're going to see the branding, and then your keywords are going to work there.
Then they purchase on Amazon, they go on a different
Yes.
tab. It's like a weird thing. You create this ecosystem. It's fascinating. And I love the fact that you're focusing on conversions and actually tracking the back end. One of the biggest hurdles that I've seen is actual true measurement, a holistic omnichannel approach. I don't think I'm going to put it out there. There's going to be a lot of startups that are saying we can track that and you'll know exactly the value of your ecosystem. And even just today, I read and looked into like the flattening of the funnel and looking at partnerships and using their CRM data to combine with your CRM, all that cool stuff, like different categories being created. Is just like partnership development. But how have you found, or what creative ways are you using to be able to track an omnichannel approach effectively? Or what are some of the obstacles you're working through? Because I know it's a tough challenge.
Well, and what you're hitting here is so spot on. All of us are being sold every day on something that actually is pretty much similar. And what you really need to at the end of the day is actually look for not just another provider or vendor. You need to be looking for partners that actually know the full funnel journey and the full customer journey. Let's stop talking funnels. Let's start talking customer journey. Let's start talking about the audience of one. It's an old way of talking about it, but we need to get back to that. Like, what is the full customer journey on this? Not just funnels. Now, funnels, yes, absolutely, because the funnel is flattening. There's no doubt. That's why the omni-channel approach is needed. Like you said, one CRM over your CRM and all these different things. There's data. We all know there's data. There's tons of data. There's tons of information out there. Trying to actually take that differentiation of a partner versus a vendor. There's tons and thousands and hundreds of thousands of vendors that can provide you something. You want a partner that is actually trying to then help you carry out the whole planning. And what does this look like through the whole journey from the beginning to the end? And that's when you get into the conversion tracking. That's when you get into all these different pieces of actual sales and building the full journey out so that you can see it piece by piece. It is so important that we get to this mindset, because everything changes drastically regularly. This is not something where things were, when I started in my career, oh, this is cool, Facebook came out. I was in media before Facebook. Fancy that concept, right? There was something before Facebook. I remember my sister going, from college, calling me from college, going, you have to sign up for this. I don't know what I'm signing up for, right? But now think about all the thousands of options we have as advertisers. Then think about how much consumers have. So it really is I have to preach this so loud and clear. Everybody's going to sell you something if you let them sell you something.
Yeah.
And they're all going to have their proprietary technology. They're all going to have their widget gadget. And you know what? That's great.
It's
But at the
looking
end
at the
of the
holistic
day,
strategy, right?
yes, you have to. You have to look at every channel and every tactic. So back to your question of that is play each tactic to its strength. Know each tactic's strength. Know that with your audience of where that's going to be. And make sure that you are fully developed in that. Find that partner. It's actually not going to cost you nearly as much as you think it's going to cost you. If you are a brand, don't be freaked out about the cost. You're going to make the cost up. It's going to be okay. And you're going to get more out of what you're doing. I promise you. So really don't freak out in that mindset. Really take that investment and think of that as an investment. I mean, our industry has not always had the best attitude or the best reputation in being a partner. And when you find that partner, we exist. We're out there. There's lots of us like you, like us, that are true partners in it. That's where the key piece is finding the partners.
Yeah, I think that's key. One of the things that I want to, there's so much we can dive into that around
Okay.
partnership marketing, identifying true costs, being able to segment, like how AI plays a role into this. And I think the premise that I want to move to another question, but I think just to close the loop on that is the development of the strategy and the proper execution of that strategy is not going to be taken over by a bot, at least not today.
Correct.
The bots can facilitate execution of what you and I are talking about,
Yes.
but they can't actually see the whole holistic journey for you. It's not going to be one tool fits all. Like
Correct.
the other tools that I was talking about earlier, connect my CRM to your CRM, see where we have partnerships. I think the company's just selling the API and to
Correct.
share your data securely, and they're creating a whole category around that. When the idea is like, hey, Mary Ann, let me see your HubSpot or whatever CRM you're using. It's just like one of those, but integrated and at scale. So
And
all
you're,
these things facilitate
yeah,
the bigger end strategy. Like those principles aren't really going to change.
that you're spot on. And right now we use AI. I call it human driven AI. And that's more in algorithms. That's more in utilization of the data and various things. The strategy part is not replaced. Just try it. Like we've been in AI for a long time. It's so funny because when Chat GPT hit, everybody was like, oh my gosh, what is this AI? No, it's been around for a long. If you have autofill, if you have any, that's a form of AI, guys. We've been using AI for a long time.
Yeah.
So let's not be scared about it. Let's know that a lot of it can be human driven and we're optimizing on that information that they're giving us, right? So AI is only good as the information you're giving it. So it's a back and forth. But back to your point of in strategy, actually, like if you go to Chat GPT and say, build me a media plan for the state of Maine, right? You're asking strategy. You're asking Chat GPT to build strategy. They go in there, they'll build a media plan for Maine and they'll include billboards. You know why? Because billboards seem to be a decent kind of thing in media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, do they know that it's illegal to have a billboard in Maine? No, it didn't have that data, right? That's a
Hmm.
strategy mindset. That's outside of just basic knowledge of what we have because it's only good as the information that it has. So it'll
Yeah.
build a strategy around that. Now, it learns from itself. And if you say, well, Maine doesn't allow billboards, okay. No, that's not strategy. Strategy is still, you're not getting that from a bot. You're not getting that from AI. You're getting that from experience and long-term value that you're being able to provide of information that you have. And at the end of the day, for agencies, for anybody in the marketing space, if you're providing value, you're fine. You're going to be okay. Like things are going to be okay. Utilize AI as your tool. That's
Yeah.
what you're looking at. That's it. It's a tool. It's a great tool and utilize it.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, and it depends on the positioning of agencies, which is why I want to pick your brain on. If you're doing a lot of creative work or if you were just doing deliverable work and AI will replace you versus
Yeah.
strategic work to increase a bottom line or a business value and the execution of that. And I think the execution piece is easily overlooked. Like anyone can give you strategy and it can be a great strategy, but it's meaningless if it's not taken to market. It's not put into plan. It's not executed properly. And that's where really I still see an immense value in the
Yes.
work that we do.
Well, and to hit on that point, how many times I'm talking to my agency brothers and sisters for a second here? How many times do you inherit another strategy from another agency because that brand has switched agencies and you're going, this is not a great strategy, but they're wanting me to carry it out, right? And
Yeah.
but it's not your strategy. It's the same thing. It's here's a cookie cutter. And now I have to do it and I have to carry it out. And that's not in reality what you really should have to do or want to do. So though you're spot on that it's the providing of the value and then implementing and carrying it out. Those are the key things. You can develop strategy all day. The ingenious part of it is making sure that it's carried out correctly. It really
Yeah,
is.
I completely agree. Switching the gears here, and we'll get close to the end, but one of the ways that I see companies compete is either they solve a new problem with an old way of solving it, or they solve an old problem with a new way of approaching things. I think what you're mentioning here, it's an old problem. People want to grow, they want to get sales. It's an old
Yes.
business problem, right? Obviously, the tactics and the strategies to get there are they're literally changing every month,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. My question to the other ways to compete are also like on the business model, on the way that you approach the position in the marketplace. I'm curious to you in your business and your positioning. How are you? I wouldn't say competing because that means that you're trying to fight for market share, but how are you positioned as the only choice or an obvious choice with your customer or ideal person of one?
Well, actually, so I like where you went with the competing side of it because what we do hear from brands directly is that they actually want agencies and their marketers to collaborate more together in their expertise.
Hmm,
So, how are you? They don't want to be the quarterback anymore. They want somebody to be the quarterback, but they want experts at the table. So,
hmm,
first, how do we all get away from, how do we become the one? Is really truly be willing to play in the sandbox and be friends. That's step number one. Collaborate, be okay to collaborate. We all, there's enough for everybody. I'm genuinely and
It's
operate in the
too much
mindset
work
of
for everyone.
abundance.
Yeah.
There is enough, and that's okay. But how do you stand out as the one is truly sharing your information, talking, teaching. Don't be so closed off on what you can offer, who you are. Don't be closed off on ideas,
Hmm,
develop and grow things with clients. Ideas take things to the next level in a relationship. This is where, again, where you go from a vendor to a part. A
mhm.
vendor is just there to sell you. And you and I have both been in this seat where I'll go to a conference and I'll have 20 vendors that just want to sell me.
Yep.
And they all say the same thing. Let me tell you how we're going to be different. And they all approach me the same way. And they all this, and it's exhausting. But at the
Junk
end of the
mail.
day, the person that stands out is the person that's just, did you enjoy breakfast? Have a conversation, right? Like
Yeah.
things like that. Or they are helpful. Hey, I want to challenge, a challenge comes up and they're helpful in the challenge. That's a partnership. So how you're standing out really for me is I want to be helpful. We are helpful to brands. This is how we share information to brands. We share information to agencies. We work with agencies too all the time. So it's a matter of how can we be helpful? How can we do this? Own your space, be experts in your space. We all have to niche down too of what we're doing. Own what you do and who your expertise is and what your expertise is.
Yeah, I think that's really important. It's fascinating too that the simple principles in the service business are if we can consolidate it to two. I talked to Jan last week who interviewed like 700 agencies to create like a referral partner and only 90 made the cut.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's quite a bit, man. That's a journey.
Oh,
But the
wow.
principles that he came out with, oh, just communicate regularly with your client, check
Yes.
box number one, and actually do what you promised. Check
Yep.
box number two. That's fascinating. It's incredible to me. So that's literally
But at
the
the end of the day, the basics are what matter.
yep,
How do we want to be treated as consumers?
the
Like,
same
what
thing.
do you want? If someone tells you they're going to call you back and they don't, it's disappointing and
Oh
it's
yeah.
frustrating because then you're like, dang it, that was not on my list, but now it's on my list because I did my part and called and now it's not, and now I got to go do this and sit on hold for however long. How do we want to be treated? That's the same way that we need to be treating our clients, and our it's a partnership. Treat them like a partner. I'm shocked at how many times I hear people don't call back or they don't respond, or that's the part that blows my mind because it
Oh yeah.
is just get back to basics, just provide quality. That's it.
Or even when I hire a vendor and I tell them, hey, I want this to be a partnership, and they still act like a vendor. I'm like, you blew it. Like, how hard was
It's
it
very
to
frustrating.
how hard
It
was
is
it
very frustrating.
to
Yep.
become a partner? But no, you're just here to sell more stuff. No, this is we can go probably a little bit longer and deeper into that, but I'm curious to know just like an exciting part on your end. What are you looking forward to in media, or what's your most creative execution of your media strategy? Something that was different and weird or quirky or fun or
Yeah, what I look forward to the most is it's nothing new, but it's how we're using these tactics and how we can use these tactics are very specific data points on individuals and how we can use them and target it. For example, we had a client that we were working with that needed to target a specific fan base of, not to get into details of the plan, but a specific sports fan base, and to sell certain things to that specific sports fan base. And we were able to just say, hey, we want to target just this fan base, and that's it. And you're running ads specifically to them. What we can do with that data set is so key and so cool, right? Like, we know that they need this product, and that we know this one thing about them, that they're all this fan base. Okay, we're going to target that team's fan base, and that's where we're going to go with the ads. You have data on it. It's there. So those are the cool things that are exciting about media, because we couldn't do that 20 years ago. 20, 25 years ago, we could not do that. We had to be broad on everything. Now we can be very specific on what we do. And that's the cool part.
That's fascinating. It simplifies the strategy, the creative, the copy, and the angles and the hooks.
It does. It's so fun when you're able to go to that level. Back in the day, it would always be like your radio sponsorships that were for a specific team, or for, that's how you did it, right? And of course, only Mariner fans are going to watch this. Okay, that's great. Now I look at it like, actually, I want to sell a product just to Mariners fans. Then I'm just going to go to Mariners fans, and that's where they're going to be. Right. And that's the beauty of it. Right. And it's where they're consuming outside of just the game. They're consuming elsewhere. These are consumers and individuals of what they're doing.
Oh, that's fascinating. Well, Mary Ann, I appreciate this conversation. Where's the best place for people to, one, thank you for being on, and two, learn more about what you're up to?
Absolutely. And I love it when people reach out and ask questions. And I always offer it to podcast listeners that if you reach out, I'm happy to discuss your media plans with you. And our team is happy to get on a call. So you can reach out to our website. It's mosaic.agency/contact. That comes straight to my email. And if you want to jump on a call and talk about that assessment of how your media is doing, happy to help in any way, shape, or form, and just talk through it. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Mary Ann Pruitt. And then on Twitter, you can find me at Media Maps. And then I'm on Instagram as well, Mary Ann Pruitt. So I'm all over the place. Find me, reach out. I love having conversations and helping however we can.
Put these links in the show notes. Mary Ann, thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
If you found value in today's podcast, please consider sharing this with someone that you believe could also benefit from this episode. You never know, you may be the catalyst that opens them up to a new way of operating their business and experiencing life. As always, it's an honor to be a small part of your journey. This is Raul Hernandez. Do good work.